Hey guys, this is Andy Harwood from the Vaz+Harwood team, and this is a quick video to help you understand how the process of viewing houses, doing showings works. This is really the fun part, right? We actually get to get into houses and see some now. You've got your pre-approval in place, you've hired us, you've got a great lender, and it's time to start seeing houses. And we've set up a home search, which I just talked about in my other video. Um, so, just a few tips on, first of all, how to find good houses. You know what you're looking for, and I rely on that 95%, okay, because I'm not buying the house. So most of our customers by far have a very good handle on what they're looking for. And if you don't, here's my biggest advice. Actually, whether you do or don't, here's my biggest advice. If you're going to buy a house, and even if you're months away from actually buying a house, I would start going to open houses. Go to any open house, anywhere, pretty much any price point. You are always welcome. There's nothing wrong with, like, no realtor at an open house does not want you there because you're just browsing or you're not a serious buyer. Start going to open houses, because if you really get your head in the game with looking at houses, you're going to walk into a house and say, oh, I would never buy this, or oh, I wish I was ready to buy right now because I would make an offer in this place. And you're going to start getting clarity about what you want. And so when we actually look at houses, you're going to have your head in the game, you're going to have seen more houses, and clarity is so helpful for buyers in real estate. But here are a few power tips from the thousands of houses that I have seen with buyers, and I'm in and out of houses every day, so and helping buyers with their home searches all the time. So a few tips to think about. One is that when you look at the photos online, they can be a little deceptive. Not purposely deceptive. No one in real estate is trying to deceive you, but when we have the photos shot, they're shot very wide angle. So oftentimes the rooms look bigger than they really are. Now, you can find the room sizes in the listing information. So if you're wondering how big the bedrooms actually are, you can look and see that there are two bedrooms that are 10 feet by 10 feet and one that's 11 by 12 or whatever. And you might conclude that the rooms are too small for you, for example, okay? Another tip is oftentimes we get to a house and we realize that the stairs are really steep or the ceiling height upstairs is really low. This is a little tricky because there's not as much we can do about that. Sometimes it's really hard to tell until you get there. But if you can start thinking about those kind of things, like, are you really tall, or is accessibility an issue, that sort of thing, or do you have older relatives who need to come over and the only bathroom is upstairs? That would maybe be a good reason to just not even see that house, right? Because we're going to get there and we're going to have this conclusion that if we had just looked at that and realized the only bathroom's upstairs and my parents can't visit because they can't do the stairs or whatever. I've heard that many times. And so another item in that category a little bit is, like, is it on a busy street? You can open up the map. You can look at the map and see where that property is. We can Google Street View it. Sometimes I check these things out ahead of time, especially if I know I have a buyer who does not want to be on a busy street. I try to check that ahead of time, not to edit the houses that you want to see, but just to point it out. Maybe there's something like that I know about. So oftentimes we get to a property and then we realize this thing is facing a gas station or an apartment building or something like that, or a school. Nothing wrong with those things, but sometimes that's not what our particular buyer wants. And if we had just looked on the map, we might have seen that, or they might have seen that. So just good things to keep in mind. Now, actually going on the showings, just a couple of things. One is, if there's just one house you want to see, that's pretty easy. We set up a single showing. We find a time that works for you. and works for us. If there's a tour, here's how that's going to work. We're going to do like multiple houses. So we're going to do 30 minutes at each house, and give or take. But I'm going to assume 30 minutes at each house, and then I'm going to build in driving time. So if you have 4 houses to see and they're all close together, I'll probably just book them 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, and then we'll have 5 minutes to get, maybe it'll be 25 minutes at a house and we can see them 2 per hour. If one is here and one's here, we might have 15 or 30 minutes of driving time. And so now realistically, we're seeing 1.5 houses an hour, or something like that. So one thing, sometimes I get a list of 8 houses to see, and that's fine. I'll show you the 8 houses, but we might have to break that up into 2 days just to have realistically enough time to do it. Or maybe there's one marathon day and you've cleared your schedule. Actually, on that topic too, I'm very sensitive to the fact that you have a job, you have times you need to be places. I have kids, there's times I need to be places too, but we try to be as open and flexible as we can because we want to get you into the properties as expediently as possible. When you're starting to look for a house, if possible, and I know everyone's job can't permit this, but if possible, assume that we're going to need to go during the day, and especially if this is during the winter, because if we're seeing houses at night all the time, you can't see roofs, you can't see foundations very well, you can't see, especially things outside very well, even inside, you can't see things as well as you can when it's a nice bright day. So we would prefer to get you in during the day if at all possible, and try to make that happen if you can for your sake in the home viewing process. And then just a couple of other quick tips. If you have slip-off shoes, as opposed to ones that you have to tie, that's very helpful because you're going to need to take your shoes off in almost every house. Can you bring kids and other relatives? Absolutely. If there's stakeholders in the process, or if there's a trusted friend who's helping you with their advice, it's going to be fine. Generally speaking, though, we don't want to turn the showings, just for the respect of the seller, we don't want to turn them into a, community, too much of a party atmosphere. But people do ask if they can bring their kids, and yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And also, try to show up on time. We try to show up on time so that we stay on schedule, because when I book the showings, if we get behind schedule, then it can be challenging. Sometimes there are 2 types of showings when I book them. One is called a go and show, and the other is called by appointment. If it's a go and show, I can usually just pick the time I want, book it, and it's auto approved. When it's an appointment only, I have to request the time, wait for the seller or the seller's agent to approve it, and then hopefully we can get in at that time. So if we're on a tour and I've got, and I try to do this strategically so that it can maximize your time too, I try to do the go and shows near the end of it if possible, so that if we get done early at a house, maybe I can move those up and we don't have to wait. Sometimes you walk into a house in 5 minutes, it's like, nah, let's go on to the next one. The go and shows, I can usually move them up so that we can get in, but the appointment ones I usually can't move up, or it's risky, because if I change the time, then we may not be able to see that one. So bottom line, we have to stay on schedule, and I have to be the timekeeper usually to tell you, oh, we should get going to the next one, so we stay on schedule. So one last thing I want to mention, the disclosures. Before we do a showing, in many cases, I will send you the seller's disclosures. And in most cases, this is going to be a 12-page disclosure statement that will tell you the things that the seller needs to communicate about the house. So if there are defects or things they've done to it, or pet situations or that kind of thing, age of the roof, that sort of situation, that will be on the disclosures. There are two forms of the disclosures. There's the main one that discloses everything they've got in 12 pages, and then there's the alternate one that only makes the state mandatory disclosures. So it's just saying if there's a well on the property, if it was used as a meth lab, just bare bones, and it really doesn't say hardly anything. But either way, I'm going to send you what I have available. And then also, some cities have truth in housing. St. Paul and Minneapolis, in particular, both have truth in housing reports. These can tell you some things about the house, too. And these can be potentially a good way to rule out houses, too, that I try to send them to you what I have up front so that you can take a look at them and see if there's anything on there where you might be like, nah, let's just not even see that one. It's got too much going on with it. So I hope all this is helpful. I'm excited to get out and show you some houses. Thank you for watching. And as always, let us know if you have any questions at all.